All right, why your first real estate deal should not be a rental property. Now, this is a must watch for new investors. I wish I had had this video 20 something years ago. It would have saved me a ton of time. It would have saved me a ton of stress. But I'll talk about it and hopefully I can help you and see you do some successful things. All right, so let's get into it. Why your first real estate deal should not be a rental property. We're going to be talking about a few things. Why most new investors start the wrong way. It's very common to start this way. If you watch YouTube videos, you watched online, this is what you usually see and what people are telling you, and we're going to talk about that and why a lot of that is not true, and a lot of that can actually hurt you in the long run. And I'm telling you this from, like I said, from experience. We've done this for quite a while, and it's been a heck of a ride. If I can't use curse words in this, so we'll get into that and we'll talk about that. Next, we're going to talk about the costly mistakes that slow people down. A lot of times you hear stuff, and it's that stuff that you hear that actually slows you down. So we'll talk about that. We're going to touch on a faster path to building real estate wealth. Now, I'm not saying this is the only path to build real estate wealth, but I'm saying this is a faster path. And for me and what we've done, I'll kind of explain our story and what we've been through, and then it'll give you some idea of why I think this works really well. And as I said, we're going to discuss what we did instead and why we did it. So we're going to get into that. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's first start off with who this training is for, who will benefit from this. Make sure you're in the right place. People who want to get started in real estate. If you want to get started in real estate, maybe you have taken on a property, maybe you have not touched the property, and you've been doing YouTube University and you've been learning all you can, but you're ready to make a move. And you might feel like I don't have the credit or the money, or I'm not ready yet. A lot of times that is not the case. Investors considering buying their first rental. If you are on the verge of buying a rental, then please watch this first, because this will help you make that decision and decide if it's the right move for you to do. At least you'll know, and you can kind of go from there. This is also for anyone who wants to avoid expensive beginner mistakes. So if you're somebody who wants to make sure, hey, you don't want to waste money. I'm going to tell you some stories in this about people that I've dealt with, students that I've dealt with that have wasted money, and they have wasted an absolute ton for no particular reason. Then we're going to talk about if any of these is you. For the next 30 minutes, I want you to pay attention and let go of what you think you know. I get on these calls, and like I said in the beginning, after we do the 30-minute presentation, I get questions. And every once in a while I get somebody that tells me, "Look, I know how to do it better." And I'm telling you from my experience what typically happens. And I've dealt with a lot of investors that have been in my same shoes and some that have been worse off than me. So let's talk about my background in real estate. This is me and my family. Me and my wife, Aisha, have been investors for over 25 years. This is literally all we do. We do not have jobs. Traditional jobs. We work our real estate business. It supports us. It pays for our family, all of our vacations, all of my kids. These two big strapping men right here, I put through college. This one is in college right now. I'm paying for her through college, and this one is in high school going to college. So these are all people that are living off of our real estate and our knowledge and what we've done. And they don't have student loans. They haven't done any of that stuff. So this is what it kind of looks like. You can build multiple deal pipelines. I'm going to talk about this in a second. You can build pipelines for residential as well as commercial real estate going a different route, and you can get there faster. Some of the stuff that I'm going to say is going to sound kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to sound like I'm dogging out or talking bad about another strategy, and I'm not. I'm not talking bad about another strategy. Some people, these strategies work great for, but for me and what I've seen with our students and people, hey, Ronald, good to see you. What we've seen with our people, it works really well doing it this way without dealing with rentals. I'll say that. You also learn structured financing without relying on savings. You don't have to use your savings every time you buy a deal. In fact, if you set your business up right, you can use your savings or credit to get started. And then once you get the first deal off the floor and get the first deal done, that can fund the rest of your business, and you can use profit to fund your business. And the best thing about it is you can use pre-tax profit. So that's something a lot of people don't talk about. They don't talk about the taxes involved in what we do. And that is a big factor when you get into things. Now, the reason why this worked with us is we learned a lot of lessons the hard way very early. Me and my wife started off, we got married. I'm going to tell you when we got married. It's going to sound weird. Me and my wife got married at 21 years old. We got married literally right out of college. We got married at 21 because that's another story, but we got married at 21. And we immediately, I was graduating from college with a finance degree. My wife had a degree in business. And we were trying to figure out what to do, what we wanted to get into. We came across a rental property and it seemed like a good deal. It was a two-flat building on the south side of Chicago, and we were able to basically purchase that deal. Now, I didn't have any money as far as a job. I had some savings that I had did. I ran business while I was in college, but I had some savings, but I didn't have a formal job. I was able to get a lender to loan us the money to buy this house. And so we bought this building, this two-flat. Bought the building. It had two apartments in it, and then it had a basement apartment that was unfinished. We went in, renovated the place, cleaned it up, rented it out, and then boom, refinanced it, took out $35,000 and used that to buy the next place. And before I knew it, we had 36 units that we bought over a 3-year period. Okay. What we ended up doing was over those 3 years, it was a struggle because we had money coming in, but we were always struggling to make ends meet. There was always something that broke. There was always a tenant that was either not paying or getting ready to leave, or they were trying to pull something. There was just always something going on. It may sound like it's glamorous to have 36 rental units. It is not. It is a grind. What ended up happening was we ended up selling. We decided to, I said, I can't do this anymore. We decided to sell the units. The great thing is that when we sold them, we actually made some decent money selling them. We, hadn't fixed all of them up. They were decent, but they were rented. We were able to sell them for some decent profit. And I thought to myself, and I told my wife this, I said, man, if we could just buy them and sell them, that will make so much more money. I like this a lot better, getting these checks. We ultimately ended up, and this, I'm kind of jumping around on the story, but we ultimately ended up using some of that money to build a portfolio of commercial property investments. We now do that with others. So we actually work with people that work with us, students and people that we know, to buy commercial property together. But we keep buying single family, because single family is the catalyst and it builds lump sums of cash when you do it the way we're going to explain. We work with others to build this business and move to commercial and larger investments with us. So that's what we do as our primary business now. Okay. This is the advice most new investors hear. Buy a rental property. That's what, if you've ever seen a YouTube video that's going to tell you buy a rental property, it's easy money, all that kind of stuff. Or you might hear something like just collect cash flow or mailbox money. Everybody talks about getting mailbox money and cash flow, or hold it forever. Never let it go. I'm buying this rental. I'm going to keep it forever. Rental money is mailbox money. These are all advice kind of sayings that people give out. And while this advice sounds good, it often fails for beginners because there's one key piece that I think they're missing or not telling you, and it's hurting a lot of people. And that piece is that cash is king. Having some cash, a lump sum of cash, a war chest of cash, allows you to do a lot of stuff. And if you start off barely having enough money, if you start off without a lot and you try to do rentals, you're going to be running around and you're going to either get burned out of it, or you're going to get to a point where you just can't handle them and they're going to start to fall off. And you can avoid both of those if you don't start with rental property in the very beginning. So let's talk about that. The hidden problems with your first rental deal. Here's some of the problems. Repairs and maintenance. Whatever you put aside for repairs and maintenance, repairs have this magical power to always cost more than whatever you put aside. It's a guarantee that you're going to end up spending more than you put in reserve on repairs. 2 is bad tenants. I don't care what screening you do. I don't care how you deal with tenants. You are going to eventually come across bad tenants. And this is from somebody. I have taken classes on screening tenants. I learned all kinds of different strategies. You will still ultimately end up at some point with bad tenants. And the horrible thing about bad tenants is one bad tenant can cost you the profit of 10 good tenants. Does that make sense? You could have 10 good tenants and one bad tenant, and all the damage that they can do, all the court costs, all the time you wait and mortgages you have to pay while you cover their rent, that can cost you more than 10 good tenants. So that's another thing you have to deal with. And it's inevitable. Vacancies. Vacancies come even once you get that person out. You think, oh, the bad part is done. You got to get that place rented back again. You got to usually come out of a lump sum of cash to fix it up and get that place back in order. This is the process. Unexpected cost. There will be unexpected cost. I could tell you so many stories. I've had stories where we had to replace an entire boiler system for a 6 unit building in the dead of winter. And it was a whole thing. There were always unexpected costs. There's always something that comes up that you didn't think would happen, and it's just waiting to happen. All of these things, and evictions and damage. One thing to do an eviction is not the most pleasant thing in the world, but at least you get your property back. But the damage and the condition. I've had tenants steal toilets. I've had tenants steal all the appliances. I've had tenants steal windows. Yes, windows out of a property just because it was hard to get rid of them. Yes, I know the feeling on both counts. Yes, it is a pain in the butt with rentals to deal with this stuff. Rentals are not passive investments most of the time. Nobody talks about this because they talk about how great everything is. And here's the trap that I learned. You think the answer is to get more rentals, but the more rentals just gives you more problems. You remember Puffy had a song, More Money, More Problems. You do make some more money, not as much as you think, but you get a lot more problems, more than you expect. So that's why I avoid rentals in the beginning. Now, I'm not saying rentals are not the answer or you shouldn't get rentals, but I'm going to show you how we do rentals and why I think it's better and how I think this strategy is safer for you, especially going into it, or even if you've got some experience, this strategy works. So we'll talk about that in a second. The other issue with rentals, and this is a big issue, is the capital trap. What does that mean? When you buy and hold rentals, your money is locked into one property. So you may have a down payment, you may have rehab money that you put into the property. Even when you rehab it after a tenant, that money is trapped in the property. You cannot get it out. Now you could refinance it out, but then it's cutting into the profit that you put together to buy the place in the first place. So if you got $1,000 cash flow on this property and you do a mortgage to get $40,000 out, and now you've only got a $600 cash flow because you got to pay the mortgage. And then as soon as that tenant doesn't pay, or if somebody doesn't pay, you not only lose the $400 that you borrowed, you also have to cover the $400. So you're actually out of $800 every month. This is a capital trap. This limits your ability to grow. Even if you take money out as a loan, this lowers your cash flow, making it hard to grow in cash, but easy to grow in responsibility. You're going to have more responsibility and a lot of times less cash flow because there are more likely to be problems the more tenants you have. All of this slows down your wealth building. Let us not forget why we are here. Why are we doing this? You are not doing this to own a bunch of doors. You are not doing this to say you got a bunch of tenants. You should be doing this to get a check. That is the only reason. We are here to get a check. Why do you care how you get the check? As long as it's not illegal, as long as it's not unethical, why do you care how you get the check? I'm going to show you how to get a larger check and get it frequently following the strategy that I'm about to talk about. You end up wasting years trying to get out of property. You end up wasting years trying to get out of this property. This trap isn't obvious. So you stack investments. Like I said, you think the answer is to buy more properties, and you stack investments until you realize this is the real risk in real estate investing, rental real estate investing. Okay. And I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to let you see this. This is not me hating on a strategy. This is not me saying you should do what we do instead, because this is me saying this is the real world and this is what you can expect. Now, you might say, well, I know somebody that has a lot of rental properties and they're doing very well. Two things I'm going to say about that. Number one, you do not see their entire life. So people will tell you, when I had 36 rentals, you couldn't tell my cousins and friends and everybody else that me and Aisha weren't rich. They just knew we were wealthy because we had all these rental properties. And when they weren't asking for us to let them move into one of the rental properties, they were asking us to borrow money or something like that because we had so many rental properties. It's not where you want to be. Okay. Let's talk about the speed problem, because this is a real part also. In rentals and in rehabs, most investors do one deal every few years. Sometimes maybe they'll do 2 or 3 in a year. But the problem with this still limits your capital growth. I am all about you making more money, not working harder for the same amount or a low amount of money. You cannot move fast when with your money, it sits sometimes for years. When you got a rental, it's sitting in that rental. Okay. This limits your opportunity cost. You might end up passing on a deal that's a great deal because you don't have the cash or you don't have the bandwidth to take on that property and that project. You miss out on making big checks from moving money quickly doing deals. That's the secret. Moving money quickly. The speed at which you can move your money allows you to multiply it and grow it fast. This is important. I cannot stress this enough. Are you all following along? Is this making sense to you so far? Because I want you to understand this is not, again, this is not hating on a strategy. This is simply letting you know what's possible. And I'm going to show you some alternatives. The speed of your money is important and can make you wealthy much faster than just sitting. Okay. All right. So let's follow along with this. The strategy experienced investors use. Okay. This is the strategy that people like me, and this is the strategy that we painstakingly learned over years. And I wish I had somebody to tell me in the beginning. And even if they did tell me, I'm going to give you a quick story. I went to a real estate seminar and I learned to listen at this seminar. Of all the stuff you could have got out of the seminar, I learned to listen. They had a breakfast one morning and I sat down at the breakfast and I had bought my 2-flat. This was when I had the 2-flat and I just bought the 2-flat. I was renting it out. I thought I was making, I don't know, whatever I was making a month. I thought I was on top of the world. And I sat down to breakfast and there was an older gentleman that sat next to me. And so we ended up talking and he said, "Oh, so what do you do in real estate?" I said, "Well, I don't want to say too much, but I got a 2-flat and I'm in the process of buying some more. I plan on buying, about 10 properties over the next few years. I'm going to buy, and be completely cash flowed and everything else." And he said, "Oh, wait, that's great. Congratulations." And I said, "Well, what do you do?" He said, "Oh, I build communities." And I said, "Build communities?" And he said, "Yeah, I build communities. I build mobile home communities. I build commercial, entire development." So we built the single family houses. We built the affordable housing. He basically broke it down. And that day at that breakfast, not at the meeting, at that breakfast, I learned to shut up and let someone who had been there teach me. The guy and other people there, and I started to ask questions instead of talking about what I was doing. I learned a lot. So this is the strategy that we have learned to use and why, and I'll explain why it makes sense as we go through this. The first thing to know is build capital first. Somebody told me this early on and I didn't want to hear it. Build capital first. Build cash you can use to deploy first. Because if you can build cash first, then it allows you to take advantage of opportunities. It allows you to put yourself in rooms that you could not have been in otherwise. Learn negotiation and deal structure. Do not learn how to fix a wall. Do not go to Home Depot learning how to do repairs. All of that stuff is great. That is low cost profit. Now you're going to say, "But I'm a contractor and I make really good money being a contractor." That's great. You do not need to fix your own properties. You do not need to fix the properties that we're going to talk about in just a second. And that's not your highest use of time. Negotiating and deal structure is absolutely your highest use of time. I'm going to tell you a story about one of our students in just a second about this. Your most profitable strategy is negotiation, not how well you can fix up a house. I don't know how to fix up a house, and I have moved millions of dollars in real estate and made millions of dollars in profit. Next is create momentum. What do I mean by create momentum? Learn to do multiple deals to create momentum. Not multiple deals in a year, multiple deals at the same time. I'm going to tell you a quick story about this. When we started years ago, probably, I don't want to say years ago, probably 5 years ago, me and Aisha did what I'm about to explain to you guys. And we had a guy call us and he wanted to sell a property. We talked to him and it sounded like it might be a decent deal. It was a nice rental. He had it rented out. And at the end of the call, we asked him one question. I said, "Well, hey, before we get off this call, do you have any other properties that you're interested in selling?" And he said, "Yes, I have 20 total. I didn't think you could buy all 20, so I was just telling you about the one." Long story short, we ended up buying all 20 of those properties from him. Now, you might say, "Well, how did you do that?" Because I guarantee you, we did not have the money or the know-how to buy 20 properties from this guy at the same time. We bought 20 properties from him. We bought them all at the same time. And when it was all said and done, we paid about 860,000, something like that, for all 20 of these properties. We got them for 860,000. All 20 of them were rented. All 20 of them had cash flowing tenants, and he sold them to us for 860,000. We sold those properties, and let me be clear, because people are going to say, well, you can't negotiate and make money and then just sell it. We sold those properties, all 20 of them, in less than 4 months. It took us about 4 months to sell all of them. The total value that we sold them for in 4 months was $3.2 million. We sold $860,000 worth of negotiated real estate for $3.2 million in 4 months. This is the power of doing. And remember what I said. I did not know how I was going to finance these deals. I did not know. I did not have the cash sitting up, but I did have some cash because I had done a deal previous to this where we made a $45,000 profit. And so I had some cash and I was able to put that together to use to buy this 800 and something $1,000 deal. You don't have to figure it out for you and say, well, I'll never get a deal like that. You will come across deals like that. I've got a student right now, Nicole, who's in the process. She just started working with us. She's buying 7 houses. I've got another student, Kyra, who's bought a 5-property portfolio. I've got other students that have bought portfolios. When you do multiple deals at the same time, your profitability and your velocity of wealth grows extremely fast. Okay. And don't let it scare you. Never dependent on one deal. You never want to be looking for one deal. If you are doing one deal at a time, you are going to burn out, because if that deal goes south, you're thinking, oh, I got to start over again. Learn to work on multiple deals, and that's what we kind of teach. Your business is continuously moving. It'll seem scary at first, but I guarantee you, there is nothing like cashing a large check after doing a deal, and you know that you can do it again if you need to, okay? Let's talk about buying and selling versus holding. Buying and selling gives you faster capital creation. Buying and selling, not holding property. I don't believe you should hold single family property for long-term wealth. Now, if it's your house, that's one thing. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about investment grade assets. We're talking about, should you use single family houses to buy and hold long-term as rentals? I don't believe so. I'm going to show you a better way. We believe you can lower long-term risk. The market crashes. Now, the market crashed in 2008 and everybody freaked out. These market crashes can happen, but that's a national market crash. There are local market crashes all the time where the market slows down. By buying and selling, you can beat out the market crashes without having to guess the market. You can win by doing buying and selling. Buying and selling increases speed. It will not only help you move faster, it will help you do more. Once we did that 20 property deal that I just talked about, we were able to do a 27 property deal a few months later. We've done 5 property deals. We've done 6 property deals. We've done one single families, one property, but we're always doing multiple deals at any given time. Speed and capital are going to allow you to scale. You don't have to have all the money now. You have to get the first one done and grow from there, and that will allow you to scale and scale quickly. Okay? So what does a good strategy look like? I've been talking about all of this stuff. Let's actually lay out what our strategy looks like to do these kind of deals. Master these 4 steps. Okay? If you can get these 4 steps together, you will have everything you need to be successful in this business model and to grow it into something larger. And I'm going to talk about what larger looks like in just a second. Learning just these skills will make you wealthy. You don't have to do anything else tied to a property. 1, build a marketing funnel. Get your phone to ring with the right sellers. I'm going to talk about this in detail, but get your phone to ring with the right sellers. Number 2 is negotiate. Negotiate with sellers without going to the property. If you are going to the property, you are wasting steps. You do not need to go to the property. I have negotiated multi-million-dollar deals sitting right here in this chair, at this desk, in this room, and done the entire thing. You can do all of it. You don't have to go to the property. It's something we think we need to do. Now, I'm not saying you don't go to properties. I've gone to properties before. It's not like I've never gone to a property, but it is not necessary. And when you learn the process, you'll see why it actually hinders you, because you get emotionally attached to property that you see. A lot of times people get, I want this deal. I really want to do this deal, that kind of thing. Don't do that. Number 3 is finance the deal quickly. We use one of three financing sources to buy all deals. We do not do creative financing. We have, and I'll tell you the three. We have a commercial lender that does a commercial line of credit that you can apply for once. Now, it's not the line of credit that you're used to where it's like, you just go write a check, but it's basically a line where they, as long as you bring them the deal, they will finance you up to a certain amount of money. So you can do $1 million, $2 million. They will finance it as long as you bring them the deal, and they don't ask for your credit and everything every time they deal with you. They only look at it once or maybe twice a year to make sure it's still okay. The second lender does 100% financing. They don't need a down payment. They will finance 100% of the deal, provided it's a good deal. And then you just have to come with the title fee, which is a couple of hundred to a couple of $1,000s. So it allows you to do the deal. The third way is and if I'm going too fast, slow me down. And if you got questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can ask them at the end. I'll answer questions about what we're doing. The third way is, it doesn't work all the time, but we do owner financing. Owner financing is the largest bank in the world because people are sitting on a ton of equity, and you just have to learn how to talk to them to get owner financing. We have a very good way that we do owner financing. When we do it, when it makes sense, we usually get 0% interest and no payments for the life of the loan. And we show our students how to do that, and they're very successful with it. All right. And then number 4, the last piece to success, and this is where most people mess up, is sell the property quickly. Sell it without fixing it up. The market doesn't get a chance to change when you do this. Have you ever seen a rehabber that bought a place and they were going to make $200,000 on the place once it's fixed up? And then what ends up happening is they end up taking longer than they expected to fix it up, or they end up having more repairs than they expected, and they end up taking 6 months or 9 months when they really only expected to take 2. Well, in that time, even though they did nothing wrong, the market can change. The value of property goes down in that area. The interest rates go up and people aren't buying as much. They are now forced to lower their price and their profit because of market change. When you get in and get out, I like to say we buy it on Friday, we're ready to sell it on Monday. When you get in and get out, you ultimately control the market and don't have to worry about it changing. The market does not shift that fast, and you can get in and get out without fix up and without dealing with tenants. You don't have to worry about repairs or contractors. Imagine being able to just do a deal. You don't have to go find contractors. You don't have to get a good plumber and electrician and everything else. You can just do the deal and make money. You can sell it at what it's worth today, not what it's going to be worth fixed up, not the ARV or any of that. Sell it what it's worth today. Okay. No need to worry about after repaired value. For those of you that are new, after repaired value is just what the property is worth once you do all the repairs and everything else. We don't do repairs. The properties a lot of times don't need major repair, and we can still do them. Now, if you've been paying attention, you're going to have a couple of questions. How can I sell without fix up? You negotiate to buy below market. That is the simple answer. And it's more complicated than that, but that's the simple answer. Negotiate to buy it below market. Every person that calls you when you set up the marketing funnel the way we show you has a ton of equity. For those of you that don't know, equity is the money that they don't owe on the house. So if the house is worth $100,000 and they owe $20,000, they have $80,000 worth of equity. When people have a lot of equity, they are likely to be able, if in the right situation, they will give you some of that equity if you can solve their problem. That's the simple answer of how everything we do. They will give you sometimes they will give it all to you. They don't need to give it all to you for you to make a profit, but they will give you some of that equity, and you can use that to make a very sizable profit. You will learn to stop looking for motivated sellers and look for equity. How many of you all, let me know in the comments, how many of you all have been taught all your real estate life to look for motivated sellers? You've seen videos and they tell you to find motivated sellers and all this, that, and the other with motivated sellers. Motivated sellers are not the number one factor to being successful. I'll say this again. Motivated sellers are not the number one factor to being successful with real estate. You know what the number one factor is? A property with equity. If a property, now, let me be clear how I say this. A property with equity, even if you're not good at fixing it up, if it has equity, you can probably make a profit. Even if you are good at fixing it up and you fix it up to realize all of that equity, you can definitely turn a profit. Equity matters more than motivation, because if I have a house that's worth $100,000 and I owe $95,000 on that house, and I'm extremely motivated, how easy or how hard is it for you to make a profit on that property? It's pretty hard because there's not a lot of equity in it. But if I'm somebody that's reasonably motivated, I do want to sell and I don't feel like fixing it up, or I don't feel like doing all of this stuff, and I've got $100,000 worth of equity, how difficult is it for me to say, yeah, I'll give you $40,000 or $50,000 of the equity if you can get me out of this and I don't have to fix it up? Very reasonable. This is not rocket science. It's common sense. But a lot of people don't use that when they're trying to do their deals. They're so focused on the buzzwords: foreclosure, pre-foreclosure, tax liens, city code violations. None of that stuff matters. Equity is what matters. Sellers sell below market for all types of reasons. So somebody's going to say, well, why would they sell to you at a discount? There are all types of reasons. I'll give you a couple. They bought a property to do a rehab on it and ran out of money. That's very common, and that's a very good reason for them to sell. That property becomes a debt to them because they can't finish the fix up and they can't get their money out. I'm doing a deal with somebody right now for a property just like that. They are being relocated for a job. Everybody's being relocated for jobs, and they don't want to have two properties. They want to get rid of the property here so they can go move and buy the property wherever they're moving to. That's just, they'll give up some equity. They are tired of being a landlord. They were a landlord. They got sick of it and they want out, and they're willing to sell at a discount just to get out. And they already kept the place for 20 years. They just need to get some of the equity out so they can get gone. They'll give you some of it. Or another one, which is a big one, the seller inherited the property. The seller lives in Texas. The house is in Indiana. They don't feel like going back to deal with their mom's house. They just want to sell it, and they don't care. As long as they get some money and they don't have to deal with it, it's an easy deal for them. These are just a few of the reasons why people sell below market. But trust me, they do it all the time. It is very common. And when you do it, people will look at you like, wow, how did you come across that deal? And it's not rocket science. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's the fact that you put deals in place. You put your marketing in place to talk to people that had exactly what you wanted. Okay. So you might be saying to yourself, well, Art, this sounds like wholesaling. This is no different than wholesaling. I know how to wholesale. I wholesaled the deal last summer. Let's talk about why this is different from wholesaling. This is not wholesaling at all. Number one, you control the deal. When you are a wholesaler, are there any wholesalers in here that I'm talking to? Because if you are a wholesaler, how much control do you have in your deal? Not very much. You signed a contract with the seller. Hopefully you sign a contract with the buyer, and hopefully they don't talk to each other and realize what you're doing, and they don't try to cut you out, or they don't try to, somebody else comes along and they sell you out for $500 more. Wholesaling is not structured to be secure. With these deals, we are buying them. We control the deal. No one can cut you out. That is the number one reason. Number two, you make bigger profits. You can find the right sellers to make the most money. You control the deal, so you control the profit. How many, if you've ever been a wholesaler, and I say all of this because I've been a wholesaler before. At one point, I was a wholesaler. When you are a wholesaler, you are just trying to get out of the deal. You're working against the timeline. You've got however many days that you told the seller you would close. You can't wait for the best profit. You are forced to just take whatever you can get to get out of it. Does that make sense? That's a very common situation with wholesaling, and that won't happen with the way we do it. You have time. I know this doesn't sound like it's important. Controlling the deal gives you time to sell. No strategic plan. You don't have to jump around and do all this crazy stuff just to get the deal done. You can make more money. You will take on less risk, and it'll be more profitable to you. Okay. Time and control will give you more buyers. How many of you all, if you're wholesaling or if you've ever wholesaled before, how many of you all are constantly looking for a buyer's list? You're looking for, anybody that can buy cash. And I want a buyer's list. I'm building my buyer's list. I got 300 people on my buyer's list. With what we do, you do not need a buyer's list. In fact, a buyer's list is prohibited. Now you might say, why wouldn't you want a buyer's list? Why? Think about this for a second. Why would I ever want a list of people who can buy my property? I would want everybody in that area, everybody in the country, everybody that is anybody that can buy my property. I want them to have access to buy my property. Why would I ever limit it to certain people? I wouldn't. I'm not going to get the best deal that way by selling it to any and everybody. Because what if so your buyers list is a bunch of investors. What if somebody wants to buy the house because their sister lives nearby and this is the perfect size house for them and it's affordable because it's not at the top of the market as a rehabbed house, it's at a reasonable number. They will pay much more than that investor will pay and they will close quickly. They will pay much more than the investor. They won't even negotiate. In fact, there might be 2 or 3 people in that area that have the same situation, and they will get into a bidding war with you to buy that property, and you will make more money. Does this make sense to you guys? Does this, what I'm saying, make sense? And this is not, like I said, this is not to shame rental property. This is to show you a better way. So let me talk to you. What happens after you do a quick turn deal? What does it look like after you do a quick turn deal? You close the deal, you cash the check. That is our baby, the check. That's what we care about, the check. We do not care about tenants. We do not care about how nice we made the property look. We don't need to take pictures showing all of our friends. Look at how beautiful I made this rehab. I want the check. I'm not going to show my friends the check because that would be weird, but I'm going to tell my friends I didn't get any pictures, but I got a nice check. And that would be what I would say. That's the first thing. Next is you can use this to fund long-term growth. And we're going to talk about that in just a second with commercial. In fact, I'll talk about it now. When we show people how to do what we do, when we work with people to do what we do, we show them how to, the biggest question that comes up with is just like all these other gurus or anybody else, if you're making so much money doing this, why are you teaching it? Why don't you just go do it? I'll tell you the quick story of how we got into this. A friend of my wife came to her and said, I see what you guys are doing. You all seem like you're living a nice life. I want to learn how to do real estate just like you. And she came to us and said, I'll pay you. I want to learn how to do real estate. And I said, absolutely not. There's no reason. Why would I create my own competition? Why would I go out of my way to show somebody that lives in my area how to do what we do and be my competition? And I talked to my wife, and my wife said, well, we should try it. We should work with her and help her because you never know how it will come out. And it took a while. It took a couple of months for us to do it. And we finally agreed to do it. During that time, she did a deal. She made $50,000, roughly 50. It was like 52,000. She made $50,000 on a deal. She did a deal, made 50,000. And she was a nurse. So I didn't think much of it. She helped her. We helped her do a deal. She did, I think 3 deals total before. She hasn't done any deals since then, but she did 3 deals total. What ended up happening was we were buying a commercial project and we needed some more capital for the commercial project. And my wife said, well, did you talk to her? Because maybe she could invest with us. I didn't think much of it. I ended up talking to her and she said, yeah, I've got cash because I've got this money from these deals. I'd be happy to invest. And she ended up investing in commercial with us. So then that put a light bulb on in my head. And I said, if I show people how to make money with what we do in real estate, they can ultimately take some of that money, invest with us in commercial. So to long story short, to make a simple answer, I benefit from helping anyone learn our process and be successful because they can partner with us into commercial real estate if it makes sense. So I'm building a network of people that can invest with us in commercial real estate, and that's long-term wealth. The way I look at it, we use single-family real estate for short-term wealth, and we use commercial for long-term wealth. You will end up with 2 businesses, a business of buying and selling single family houses and making lump sums of cash, and a business of using that cash pre-tax before you are taxed. If you do it the right way, and we can show you how, you'll use it to buy commercial, and that commercial will throw off huge amounts of cash flow over time. And it will not only do that, but it'll also grow in value. And as it grows in value, you make more money on the money you invested. Plus you're getting cash flow, but you're also getting lump sums of cash from over here from the single family. You end up with 2 businesses. We can help you build a fast sell business and a long-term wealth business. Does that make sense? That's how you do these. That's why we do this. Okay. So next step, if this interests you at all, if you think this might be for me, I don't know, I might want to consider it. I am not sure. I don't know what, maybe not. I don't know this, that, and the other. Then I want to set up a strategy call with you. So a strategy call, just so you know, we're going to review your current situation. Okay. We're going to look at where you're at, what you're doing, what makes sense, what doesn't. We're going to identify gaps in your structure. Now, if you have no structure, you've never done a deal, then that's okay. So how do we avoid paying large capital gains tax? So I'll answer that in 1 second. Let me get to the end of this. Good question. Identify gaps in your structure and how we put everything together so that you don't put yourself at any ridiculous risk. The next thing is map out your first or next deal. We'll show you what that looks like doing this strategy compared to what you might have been used to, because a lot of times people are stuck in how they think a deal needs to go. We'll show you all of that. And then last is decide if you're ready to move forward. If you're ready to move forward, we'll talk to you about what that looks like working with us, and we'll, lay out some ground rules and what that looks like. Okay. Now, if you want to book a strategy call, let me know in the comments or the chat, and just let me know that you'd like to set up a call. I will send you a link to the call and we'll get you started on talking with us. There is no obligation to get on a call with us. Calls usually take about 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes they go a little bit longer because we really get into strategy and ideas. You can set up a strategy call. This is for serious investors only. If you are someone that is just addicted to getting on calls and talking about business, then this isn't for you. This is for people that actually want to take steps forward. Because while I do like talking to people, my ultimate goal is to build people to start in this and then go into commercial. If you're not sure, get on a call. But if you know that you're ready to take moves and you think you might have it, then we can talk. We will evaluate your readiness. We will provide you a clear action plan. And there are limited spots available because more than likely you will be talking to me. I love to do strategy calls. There's a chance you could talk to one of the other people on my team, but a lot of times you'll talk to me. And I'm very straightforward with everybody. Okay. So that is my presentation for right now. Now I'm going to get into, let me take this off really quick. I'm going to get into questions, and I'm going to answer some questions. If you have questions, you can either put them in the chat or you can raise your hand if you want to talk about that. First question that came up. Okay. Hold on, wait. Miss Diane said, hello. I know you said wholesale. Is it novations? No, we don't do novations. I know about novations. This is not novations. This is not selling paper or anything like that. It's none of the typical strategies. It is a lot more straightforward. Okay. It is, and it works really well, and it builds up a continuous business. One of the things I didn't talk about in the call or on the slides is that this is a continuous business, meaning that you will make money initially and then you will continue to get cash flow from it. So you'll make money not just on a deal, but you'll do constant deals. TJ asked, these are listed homes? No, 99% of the time, in fact, almost 100% of the time, my properties are never listed. We buy off market, and our marketing funnel allows us to get people that are off market to call us and buy these properties, and we get great deals from them. The 20 property deal that I talked about, that guy was off market. Now you might say, why did that guy sell the 20 properties? I'll tell you about him, and I'll tell you about the 27 property. If you want to hear it, let me know. I'll get into that. I want to answer these questions. But the other question that Nicholson asked was, how do we avoid large property gain tax? So here's the thing. For those of you that don't know, when you buy a house and sell it within the same year or within a year's time, that is going to be considered short-term capital gains. Short-term capital gains is charged taxes like a son of a gun. It is high. And so when we first did this, I'll tell you a quick story. Our first year doing quick turn, the process that we do now, we did high six figures. We did over $800,000 in profit, meaning money that we actually put into our bank account throughout the year. We didn't get it all in one check, so it wasn't like that, but we got it over the year. And when we got to the end of the year and we had our tax bill, I told my wife we're probably going to jail, because I said this capital gains is going to kill us. When we sat down and worked with our accountant, when we sat down and when we worked with our accountant, what we learned was that if you put your property, if you set up the deals in the right way, you can put money into commercial. And as long as you put that money to work in commercial and can show proof, and there's two ways that we do it. But once you do it, one is a 1031 exchange. And there's a lot of rules to that, but that's just one way. You can put the money into commercial and then it's not taxed at that time. It'll be taxed when you pull it out of the commercial. But if you play it right, which is what we do, we constantly roll our money in commercial over to a larger deal. We did a commercial deal a few years ago that we had a 5x return on, meaning that if we put $100,000 in, we got $500,000 out of that deal. That was a 5x return for us and our investors. And when we did a deal like that, we could have taken the $500,000 and just paid taxes on it and did whatever. But instead, we took it and rolled it into an even larger project. And it allowed us to take less leverage, so we didn't have to borrow as much. And it allowed us to do a bigger deal than what we would have done before. And that strategy will make you wealthy. I cannot stress it any other way. See, the problem is not making money, actually. The problem is actually keeping the money you make. Okay. So that's just a little bit. Hope that answers the question. So, Miss Diane, you're saying you want to hear about why the guy sold, right? Is that right? So if I'm not right, then just correct me. So the first guy, the guy that had 20 properties, he originally wanted, I want to say like $1.5 million for all of the properties. We ended up talking him down, and we learned that his main motivation was that he had cancer. He had cancer, and his doctors had given him like 2 to 3 years to live. And his wife told him that she didn't want him, work running around to all these rentals, dealing with these rentals while he had cancer. Funny story about this. We ended up buying those properties. One of his tenants had been in the property for over 30 years, renting the property. What? 30 years renting the property. We ended up buying the properties. We sold about, of those 20 properties, we sold 8 properties to the tenants that lived in the property. We immediately made a profit like in the first 3 weeks. In fact, we made more than we put in the deal in the first couple of weeks when we sold to tenants because of the way we set this up. But I say all that to say, here's a tenant that rented a house for 30 years, never bought the house, and then we came along and we tried to help them buy the house. They did not end up buying the house. They didn't want it. They said they were older. They didn't want to buy a house. At this point, they just wanted to rent. We ended up selling that house to another person. But that was the first guy. The guy had 20 properties. He had cancer, and he was very happy. He was happy with everything because we closed quickly and everything got out. Mike said, did the tenants buy them from you rent to own? No, they did not buy us rent to own. We have a process that we sell to tenants sometimes. We sell to tenants sometimes. Those tenants can't always qualify for financing, but we have some very good finance people that can take them through some rapid stuff, not so much a rapid rescore, but they can actually help them clean their credit up, and they can give them some grant programs that help them come up with down payment money, and it's fast. We take them through those people. They tell them, yes, they can get them approved, and they close I won't say fast. They close about 30 to 45 days like a normal closing, but it allows us to save the real estate commission, and we can get the price that we want. Because when they're happy that you tell them they can get financing, they don't fight you on the price. Okay. So thank you. That's good. What turnaround time usually if work full time? I know each person is different. So here's the thing. When you work with us, there's 4 things that you have to do in this process. Number 1 is you set up your process. You set up your marketing funnel. You set up how you're going to manage people that come in. We help you do that stuff in about the first month. When you sit down, we'll help you get there and get all that stuff done in about the first month. Now, you might be able to work faster, but what that looks like as far as time, it looks like you working an hour or 2 maybe every other night during the week. So then when you get off work, it's stuff you don't have to do on the phone during business hours. You can do it at night or on the weekends and get set up. Once you get set up, you will start your marketing and everything. And then your only job is to answer the phone. You don't have any other jobs, and that takes very little time to answer the phone. So you might get calls in while you're at work. When you get off work, the only requirement is that you call those people back and follow up with them. And we'll show you how to do all of that, what to say to them, exactly what to say, how to negotiate deals. And if you don't think that's true, my students, like I said, Nicole, she did it. She's working on a 7-property deal. I've had students, if they follow the process, the ones that follow what we tell them to do very well. I have another student, just being honest, that she's a realtor and she's very smart and she knew how to do everything, and she just got ours so she could learn the process. And she got into a deal and she's not making money like she thought. And then after she did something different, she came back and said, okay, tell me what to do. And I said, I can't. You did something different. You're in a different spot. I can show you how to stop losing money, but you did something different. If you can follow directions, you will do very well. The students that I have that follow direction do extremely well. The ones that kind of know it and they do it on their own, they get whatever results they get. But it's not a time crunch. It's going to take you, once you are set up in that first month, you're probably working maybe an hour or 2 a week at the most, and that's when you get off work. So it's definitely something you can do. So the other thing I will tell you, people say, well, how much is the program? What kind of money am I going to make? And all that kind of stuff. Here's the simple answer. I can't tell you what you're going to make. It depends on each person. The average profit for doing one of our quick turn deals is about $35,000 or better per deal. So usually you can make everything that you've invested in the deal back in the first deal and invested in learning the process and everything else in the first deal. And then your money comes off the table. And then you spend the other money is your profit. You're spending that to actually grow your business. That's what it kind of looks like. So does that make sense to you guys? All right. So is anybody interested in setting up a strategy call? If so, you can send me a DM, direct message. If you ask for it in the chat, I will get you a link so that you can set up a strategy call with me. I promise you, you will enjoy it. I have yet to have somebody on a strategy call that says this was not worthwhile. We share a lot of stuff with you. Things are moving very well for us so far. We want to see you take advantage. So I look forward to speaking with you. Hopefully, we can help you get started. As always, happy hunting. See you guys later. Have a great night. Bye bye.